You cannot just know it and avoid it. You cannot just hear God's voice and not act on it. You cannot just know the conviction, know the truth, and not obey it. Guys, that is the center of what we're going to be talking about today. And I just want to thank you for pressing the video. This is a new thing I'm trying to do. This isn't exactly what I want to say podcast. I think I'm going to keep this separate from the podcast. The podcast specifically, I want to bring people on, but I'm considering this its own thing. You know, by the time I upload it, it will have the name and it will have its own category. Right now, I'm not sure, but I'm more concerned about spreading the word. You know, so but yeah, so I think that a lot of times we often will think that what we know is what we act on, or what we know is just right. That's just not true. We can know what's good, but that doesn't mean we're necessarily doing what we're supposed to be. I mean, if I know it's a sin to smoke or to do drugs, but I'm doing drugs, then that's you see what I'm saying here? If I know it's a sin to have sex outside of marriage, but I'm still doing lustful activities, we're doing something wrong here. Um, but we can just apply this to other things too. When we're out in public and we feel the pressure of our faith, and it's not like we're called to just shove it down someone's throat, but we are supposed to represent our values. We are supposed to spread the word in some sort of way. I feel like a lot of times we don't act on these. We fall into that fear. We fall into that pressure of what people think, rejection, or maybe even consequences. Like there's a lot of categories that this can apply to. Um, and if you want to open your Bibles to the book of Jeremiah, we're going to go to chapter 38. So at this point, see, King Zedekiah was stressing out. Babylon was about right after this. Babylon comes and takes over, and they breach Jerusalem. They take it over. But before this, Jeremiah's. Let's just say Jeremiah is not a liked person in Jerusalem or in Judah. By his own people, they are not a fan of what he had to say, because he didn't tell them what they wanted to hear. He wasn't a people pleaser. He was telling them the truth. People didn't want to know that they shouldn't be living by their flesh. They shouldn't be listening to sin and disobeying God and his voice. Let's go to verses 24 to 28. Then Zedekiah said to Jeremiah, "Let no man know about these words, and you will not die. But if the officials hear that I have talked with you and come to you and say to you, 'Tell us now what you have said to the king and what the king has said to you. Do not hide it from us, and we will not put you to death,' then you are to say to them, 'I was presenting my petition before the king, not to make me return to the house of Jonathan to die there.' Then all the officials came to Jeremiah and questioned him. So he told them in accordance with all these words which the king had commanded. And they ceased speaking with him, since the conversation had not been overheard. So Jeremiah stayed in the court of the guard until the day that Jerusalem was captured." Now this is towards the end, right before Babylon shows up. And this is where King Zedekiah what he's doing is he's having a secret conversation with Jeremiah, because he is so concerned about what the people think. See, the king, he knew that Jeremiah was a true prophet. He knew that God was speaking to him. He knew that what he was saying was true. But he was so under pressure from the people. Jeremiah told him straight earlier in this that if you give over to Babylon, if you surrender, you will live. You will live. But if you don't, you will die. Not even just suffer, because he suffered, but he died. But so King Zedekiah tells Jeremiah he cannot talk about it. He has to be quiet. So Jeremiah keeps that promise, and even while he's still in the court, even though he's still in containment, he obeys. He understands. He doesn't say anything. But on the king's side, he hears this truth and he doesn't act on it. He just decides not to follow it. Um, and there's consequences for this, guys. It's not just listening to that temporary relief and thinking that stress has just disappeared. All right. Now, I know that this doesn't just apply to ourselves personally sinning, but in our fleshly temptations. But when God calls us to do something, he calls us to act on something, and we refuse, there are consequences for that. There are a multitude of consequences. All right. And you see here that when he's captured, see, Zedekiah, first he tries to escape and flee with the soldiers at night. So Babylonian officials, they enter, they breach Jerusalem, they burn it down, they destroy the walls, and they end up capturing him, King Zedekiah and his soldiers. All right, and they bring him to King Nebuchadnezzar, who's the king of Babylon. And see, what happens here is he slaughters his sons right in front of his eyes, and then he gouges his eyes out. Then they chain him up and drag him into exile. He suffered and he died in exile. At least we know that. If he would have obeyed and listened to Yahweh, he would have lived. This wouldn't have happened. See, and even when Jeremiah is captured by King Nebuchadnezzar, surprisingly, he orders him to be protected. See, God is going to protect you when you obey him, even when it doesn't look like it's going to work out. Like, how would it make sense that this evil king of Babylon does all this? He takes most of the people in exile, except for like the poorest people, to just take care of the land. Takes them all in exile. They destroy it. They burn the place down. They tear the walls down. And then he says Jeremiah is to be protected. And then he's released from prison. And he's treated well. All right. God will take care of those who stay faithful, even in the chaos. Even in chaos. We have to stop looking through our mindset. We have to understand that God is outside of this dimension. He's outside of space and time. He's outside of everything. He knows the past, the present, the future. Why are we trying to stress over this kind of stuff? And it's not like, there's some king who's going to show up to your house and conquer everything and try to kill you and your family and your loved ones and make you suffer. But we go through everyday moments of that conviction we feel. And a lot of the times we don't act on it, even when we know we're supposed to. That's fear. Fear leads to losing things. You lose things. But we have an alternative. See, right back up at the beginning of chapter 38, verses 7 to 28, we talk about Ebed-Melech. See, this was an Ethiopian servant of the king, right? So this really lower guy, and God chooses him to be the hero. He's the one who actually rescues Jeremiah. See, a little earlier, before Jeremiah is meeting with King Zedekiah, he's sent into this empty well filled with mud to die, pretty much, just to sink down, die. Practically runs out of bread. They give him like a loaf a day, just enough to just exist. And this servant, Ebed, he speaks up boldly. He goes right up to the king and calls this injustice out. This man literally could have lost everything. He could have lost everything, but he noticed the injustice. He knew what he had to do, and he did it. There's a difference. We have courage. We have fear. These are two different things that we have the option to choose. When we are in that situation, there is never just one road to take. There's always that other door. There's always the back door. And let's read this, though. Verses 7 to 28. But Ebed-Melech the Ethiopian and Enoch, while he was in the king's palace, heard that they had put Jeremiah into the well. Now the king was sitting in the gate of Benjamin, and Ebed-melech went out from the king's house and spoke to the king, saying, My lord the king, these men have done evil in all that they have done to Jeremiah, the prophet whom they have cast into the well. He will die right where he is because of the famine, for there is no more bread in the city. Then the king commanded Ebed-melech the Ethiopian, saying, Take in your hand 30 men from here and bring up Jeremiah the prophet from the well before he dies. See, he ended up giving him permission to do it. See, God will protect you when you show your courage for him. We know here that it also says that, so Ebed-melech took the men into the hand and went into the king's palace to the place beneath the storeroom, and took from there worn out clothes and worn out rags, and let them down by a rope into the well to Jeremiah. Then Ebed-melech the Ethiopian said to Jeremiah, Now put these worn out clothes and rags under your armpits, under the ropes. And Jeremiah did so. So they pulled Jeremiah up with the ropes and brought him up from the well, and Jeremiah stayed in the court of the guard. Now, not only do we have Ebed-melech here as an example, but Jeremiah himself, because this is his book, right? He's going through a lot of struggles. All his people hate him. All his people hate him. And even though he is suffering and, being in that situation of just immense suffering, it's horrible. But God protected him. He sent this man, he sent this servant to practically save him, right? To be the hero. God was taking care of both of them, essentially. He was taking care of the servant because the servant could have lost everything. And then Jeremiah could have lost his life. God watched over him. He protected them. I feel like we need to start having more courage and more bravery in our faith. God sees everything. He knows everything. He keeps track. He's going to have your back. When you keep your faith in him and you do what he asks and you go to his callings and you listen to that conviction, he will take care of you. And it's not going to look like an easy straight road. I mean, obviously there were struggles. There was immense struggling and pain, but God never let them go. He never let them die. He never let them lose. Most importantly, one last part I wanted to talk about here is in chapter 40. So after Babylon comes in, takes over, after King Zedekiah, Jeremiah is released, and the Babylonian commander, I'm going to try to say this right, Nebuchadnezzar. Okay, I'm sure that's not right. He's the one who sets Jeremiah free. And what's wild about this is this pagan commander, he understands Jeremiah's role better than the people of Judah. He says here that the Lord has brought this disaster because your people have sinned. How can sometimes the outsider, the ones who don't look like they would recognize the truth better, they do. It's crazy that the people of Judah and Jeremiah's people, they mocked him, but this Babylonian commander understood, and God used this to help set Jeremiah free. See, but also, he's given a chance. Jeremiah's given two options here too. He can have safety, provision, comfort in Babylon. So he's given the option to stay in Babylon, and he's going to have all these protections and these good life, a better life, right? He's going to have comfort. But he's also given the option to go back to Judah, which is kind of like a wasteland. It's just not really great. It's practically destroyed. I mean, the only people there running it are the poorest of the poor they left. So, in uncertainty, Jeremiah decides to stay in Judah, which is under Gedaliah. See, I'm so rough with these names. I'm trying my best here. So he chose that purpose over comfort. And what I like just about this whole section is there's purpose outside of comfort. That is more important than that relief, that protect. Like, it's just, The fear or the courage. He chooses his purpose over that comfort. Even though everything he has gone through, he does what he is called to do. What I'm really trying to get at here is we need to lie in our purpose. We need to lean into what God has called us all essentially for. We're all called to be obedient in that purpose. We're all called to trust in him, to go through what we need to for what he has asked of us. So you can either be Ebed-Melech or King Zedekiah. See, King Zedekiah, he chose that temporary comfort over that obedience, over obedience to God. And we do this every day. We do this every single day. We'll choose comfort over obedience, that temporary comfort. This cost him everything in his life. Guys, if we choose comfort, that temporary comfort over obedience to the Lord, it will cost us our soul. It will cost us our life. It is not a joke. You know, we can mess up, right? It's going to happen. Not that we can mess up, but we will mess up. Let me correct myself because there is a difference. Not encouraging you to go and mess up, but if you do, it's what happens. It's more about understanding to not just lay in that. You can't just keep ignoring God. See, they thought God actually answered their prayer because what happens a little earlier, if we were to go back to chapter 37, we're not going to read anything here, but I'm just going to explain this real quick. Originally in chapter 37, that's when Babylon was showing up, but they retreated and they had to go back because Egypt's army was coming to attack them. They thought that God had answered their prayers essentially. They were like, oh, thankfully we're good. That's Egypt's thing. We're safe. Jeremiah said, no. He was essentially saying that Egypt's army is not going to save you. He said Babylon's going to destroy Jerusalem, and God has already spoke. All right. So it's important to understand here. They thought that their prayers weren't answered, but they weren't actually obeying God. God was just giving them more of a chance. He was delaying. He was delaying it essentially. It wasn't over. It still happened. King Zedekiah just didn't listen. God will delay it. He will give you the opportunities. He will give you chances. He will try to move you and get you to listen. But when the time's up, if you pass, you know, the day you don't have any more chances, that's it. You know, you don't just get forever. There is not always an opportunity to just get a second chance. But every day you wake up with breath in your lungs, you have that opportunity. So choose courage over fear. Don't choose temporary comfort over that obedience. It can cost you everything, right? And again, we can apply this to multiple things. We can apply this to being out in public with our faith. We can apply this to sin and temptation. This is just a very important thing that we need to know and we need to learn and we need to be able to apply and remember this. I felt reading this that this was a great message to share. So just take away with it. Fear will trap you. You will get stuck with it. But that obedience, even though it feels so like rough, hard, like it feels difficult, it's what actually frees you. It truthfully does. It takes a lot of consistency. It takes a lot of strength, but that's what frees you. Fear is not the route. So speak up and do what's right, even if it costs you something. This is for God. This is for the Lord. We are to make sacrifices for the ones we love, and He is our first love. That's what the Bible says. He's our first love. So don't fall into that. Don't fall into that fake comfort. Leave this video. Next time you are tempted, next time you feel that conviction, next time you are going through something and you know you need to act on your obedience to Christ, remember the king. Are you the king or are you the servant? Because the king didn't listen. And look where it got him. But the servant was the hero. The servant was the one called. Or even Jeremiah. We could talk about Jeremiah. Even the prophet. He suffered, but he obeyed. So be the obeyer to God. Thank you for listening. I really hope that you can leave this video with something really important, valuable. Um, if there's any other messages you want me to go over, any other verses, please comment them. I'm looking forward to doing more videos like this. So, I have a lot of fun making this. Obviously, it's my first time making such a long form content video. So it might be kind of rough. Maybe some of my points aren't as strong, but it's just a work in progress. I'm going to get better at this. I'm going to improve. I'm always going to continue to make more content like this. So keep your obedience in God and stay in your word.